and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to the 2023 City of Gloucester Candidate Forum here for the at-large councilors. It's great to be back in Gloucester High School. I spent some of the best years of my life here before moving on to Rockport. I just came back over the border to have my shots and we're ready to go. I'd like to thank you to Gloucester High School, to the drama program, and to 1623 Studios for putting this together. And as I said last week at the mayoral debates, this is a critically important part of our democracy. And it's important to learn about the candidates and the issues, to become educated, and then to get out and vote. So thanks to all of you here this evening, and thanks to all of you watching on TV. I'm going to ask you, as I will do this, to silence your cell phones. And I'm going to explain the format. The candidates are seated as they're seated, not really in alphabetical order, but that's fine. We're going to do the order of sequences, starting from closest to me to furthest, and then we'll alternate. And then when it comes time for the closing statements, we'll go the other way. Each candidate will have up to 75 seconds to answer a question, and at my discretion, I will allow the candidate additional time just to finish their point. But if you're rambling a little bit, we're going to move it all along. There is a timekeeper down there. He will give 15-second warnings and stop signs with handheld signs. And each candidate will also be allocated 75 seconds for a closing statement. We're going to try to get 3, 4, maybe 5 questions in. The questions have been developed by the Greater Cape Ann Chamber's Government Affairs Council with input from the community and Gloucester High School students. So, here we go. Gentlemen, we are waiting in Virgilio's to grab something for lunch, and each one of you introduces yourself to a mythical me who just moved here from another community, and I want to know more about the elections, and so I say, tell me a little bit about yourselves and why you're running.
Why am I running? I'm running because I love this city. I was brought up in a home that said that you need to give back to your community. You need to be part of the community. And I've spent my life living in that philosophy. Gloucester has an awful lot going for it, but as is with any contemporary city, we have many challenges facing us. And I believe we need people who, like me, who will take care and look towards the future as well as the past to make correct decisions. And I'm a solutions-based person. I was taught in my household that if you weren't part of the solution, you were definitely part of the problem. Now, I think you should get the St. Joseph's with oil and seasoning. That's my favorite.
That's what I totally get.
And then take it down to the boulevard and enjoy the majesty that is our fair city. And that's about all I got for the Virgilio's conversation.
And thank you for treating. Okay, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Bob, for hosting this or moderating this. And thank you to the audience here and at home as well. This is an important election. If I run into Virgilio's, I've run into you 3 times, I think, Bob, in the last week. So I'd say, nice to see you again. I'd probably sing some of the Italian songs that are playing there. And then I would treat with a Gloucester gift certificate, which is a program I started with the Chamber of Commerce back in 2002. Which has contributed over $500,000 back to our local economy. So I'd be happy to use that to keep money local. I would say the reason why I'm running, Bob, is public service is in my blood. If we did a 23andMe DNA test, you'd find I'm a quarter Greek, Italian, Irish, and English, but I'd be 100% public service. My mother was a paraprofessional. My dad went to school for education, but there wasn't positions open at the time. My grandfather was a policeman for 37 years. Some people may have known he retired as a chief of police. So I've kind of grown up around it. And I think that the key thing, a friend of mine, Peter Trigian, who's mayor of Peabody, once said to me that when you're on the city council, the 10 or 15 people who come to meetings matter, and you want to listen to them, but you also represent the other 29,000 people who don't make it to meetings because they're working a second or third job, they're taking care of elderly parents or kids, and you represent them too. So I would ask for your vote because I'd be able to represent you well, Bob. Thank you.
Okay, Jamie.
Hello, Bob. My name's Jamie O'Hara. I'm an at-large counselor in the city, have been for 4 terms or 8 years. I grew up in the city, lifelong Gloucester resident. I attended this school, Gloucester High School, and graduated from Gloucester High School. I've worked hard my entire life, worked to help people my entire life, long before making the decision to run for city council and be an official voice of the people. The city is a beautiful place. We've evolved from what I can remember as a child, the D-hide. Some of you here tonight, some of you at home, remember that beautiful odor? That was the smell of money. There's a wonderful, wonderful part of Gloucester, but we have changed. We've evolved to where we are today, and it's becoming more challenging for the residents of our city to exist. They struggle. They fight for everything that they have. We're fighting over every square foot of land right now. Developers are coming into our city, and people aren't overly pleased with it. But we have to work with the city and the people, obviously the developers, to hopefully come up with a system and a development that will work and will keep the people happy. Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. My name is Jason Groh, and I would say that, like you visiting Gloucester, I came to Gloucester 23 years ago with my family, specifically to find a place to raise them and set up my own set of generational roots. I knew that if I wanted to be part of this community and I wanted to build something for my children, that I had to get involved with the way that it was shaping up and the decisions that were made. I view every decision that I make through the lens of what it's going to do to the Gloucester of my children. And to me, that's the most important thing I think about when thinking about how we look at the future of our city. Been very happy to live here. I would suggest that I've spent 6 years on the city council now, and look forward to another 2. My wife Sarah is heavily involved in activities in the city and Gloucester Education Foundation, the Open Door, and between the two of us, we have our eyes set on a lot of different things that are terrific in the city, and that's what I like to concentrate on. I would certainly make sure that you stop by Cafe Cecilia for a cappuccino.
Absolutely. Okay, Chris.
Thank you. And thank you to the Chamber. Thank you to 1623 Studios. Thank you to everyone here. My name is Chris Carranza, and I'm running for Councilor at Large. And I would definitely recommend the chicken St. Joseph, and I would replace the tomatoes with roasted red peppers. So that's my insider tip on that one.
I'm writing.
There you go. So you've probably seen my slogans and signs out there, and to remind you all, the S in Carranza stands for streets, schools, and seniors. But in this regard, answering your question more specifically, I was proud to help work alongside our DMO, Discover Gloucester. I served on that board as the mayoral appointee. And we have an embarrassment of riches in this city. We have so many cultural events right now. We have the Gloucester 400th going on, terrific things going on for that, festivities. But more importantly, we have a great community here. And I think that's why every single person up on this stage is willing to run. I think we all have a commitment to public service. I salute all the people that take out papers and run. It's not an easy thing to do. I was the person that was the interim CAO in between the former mayor and the current mayor. An adult has to be in the room to make sure we are fostering good conversation, good government, responsibility to our budget and to our bottom line. So I would ask that you take a look at our great city, make sure that you celebrate it appropriately and have some fun, but make sure you vote and invest in people that are going to celebrate the best version of ourselves. And I hope that you'll take a look at all of us tonight and think hard about that. Thank you.
Thank you all. And this evening, Val Gilman is not joining us because she tested positive for COVID, but she sent along a statement, and I will read part of it as her opening and the rest of it as her closing. So, pretend I'm Val here for the moment, and I will thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting tonight's Councilor at Large debate. I was truly looking forward to participating. For the past 8 years, I have served as our city's Ward 4 City Councilor. I am currently City Council President. I have also served on the Gloucester School Committee for 6 years, serving one term as chair. My background includes a 25-year career in HR management. My most recent position was serving as a VP and officer of a Fortune 500 software company. I have a BA in psychology from UMass Amherst and an MS in HR management at Lesley University. I have lived here for 54 years, first in Ward 1 and most recently in Ward 4 for the past 25 years. My husband and I have 2 wonderful children who were born and raised in Gloucester, Jared, age 23, and Casey, age 35. And you'll just have to wait for the rest later. We move on to the first question, and I will start with Jeff. And that first question, appropriately enough, comes from a Gloucester High senior, Aurelia Harrison, who is the editor of the Gillnetter. And she asks, how do you plan to address the concerns of young people who grew up here that worry they may not be able to afford to live here when they graduate?
Firstly, thank you to Aurelia Harrison for the question, and I know how important the Gillnetter is to the school. My son was head of one of the editors of the Cherry Street Journal, which is the O'Malley Middle School similar publication. Now he's in Gloucester High School too as a 9th grader. I think this is probably the existential, and I said it 2 years ago when we were here, the existential threat to what we know as Gloucester is the affordability of housing for people who live here. I would say to Aurelia, first and foremost, focus on your education, because a good education and potentially a college degree could lead to a job that can afford the kinds of homes in Gloucester that we have. But we have to work really hard as a community to attract the kind of businesses that can pay those salaries to afford the houses in Gloucester. So that's the other side of the coin that we don't look at. What are we doing to recruit business here? And what more can we be doing to do that? So that's one thing I would start with. The second thing is, I think we had a challenge with our zoning changes proposed last year, and none of the changes proposed were going to build a deed restricted or affordable housing. I think we need to work really hard on finding ways to build more deed restricted affordable housing with local preference. And what that means is probably smaller homes, more cluster zone development, going higher in some places. I propose in the industrial park, we could go really high there and not block anybody's views to try to provide more housing for people who live in Gloucester. And that's what I want to commit to working towards. There is no easy answer to that, and anybody suggests that there is wouldn't be experienced enough to lead. Anyway, thank you for the question.
I would recommend to every student in Gloucester High School, or obviously reaching out to the kindergartners, to focus on their education. We as a city owe it to every student in the city and every parent of those students or guardians of those students to provide the finest education and to learn the basic A, B, and C's so that when they cross Newell Stadium, I've been sitting there and unfortunately I look and I sometimes cry inside. We've lost some wonderful teachers here at Gloucester High School for one reason or another. We need to provide, again, the finest education. The management of our schools needs to be top-notch, but our educational system can't be flawed. We need to be able to bring the students into the classrooms. Those students need to have a reason to show up to school. I know one student, unfortunately, who doesn't want to attend. The student's a very bright student, but for one reason or another, that student just doesn't have it in them for one reason, again, or another. And we as a city, I think, need to step up our game. We can't use excuses. Other cities and towns deal with what we're dealing with as a city. We need, again, to provide that education to those students to be able to further their education, whether to college, in the workplace, or in the armed forces. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aurelia is asking probably the most important question we have to answer right now, and that is how do we keep our children having the opportunity to stay here in Gloucester? Obviously, a lot of kids are going to go off to school, they're going to start their lives, and they're going to explore the world as they should. But it is always my hope that if my daughters wanted to come home to Gloucester, that they would have a place. And increasingly, that is not the case. And it's not just our daughters and our sons that can't come back. It's seniors that can't get out of their own homes because they're too large. There's no place for them to go. So we've created this imbalance in the Brownian motion of housing, and so we don't have the opportunities that we should be providing for our young children, our kids, and our seniors. But we do absolutely need to approach housing affordability and affordable housing, and they're not exactly the same thing. I disagree. I think the amendments last year that didn't pass would have offered the opportunity for modest growth in various neighborhoods, and we should have taken the opportunity to do that. We have a big opportunity with the MBT TOD and the Comprehensive Planning Initiative to really begin to think about what kind of community it is that we really want for the next 20 years. And I hope that we choose properly and correctly, and we do it with the eye of having our kids have the opportunity to come home, because that's why we moved here in the first place.
Thank you. Chris?
I look around this room and I think about all the ways to answer this question. First and foremost, the Gillnetter is maybe the best publication in the city. So I appreciate the youthful talent there and how they report in a fair way, but get involved. And that's just it. It's about community, getting involved. When I think about the former school and how there was a lot of conversations about taking down that school, and instead there was lawsuits launched, I took a tour of that building, and I want the best for our students. I want the best for our seniors, but in this case, we're talking about students in our schools. And I think we deserve the best. I think we deserve the best education. I don't think you can replicate that on Zoom. It takes hard work to show up and get quality education done in quality buildings. And I'm very proud of that. I see the former chairman, Mr. Pope. I'm very proud that he was an adult in the room that signed off on the release of that building to be taken down so we can have a beautiful new building today. So I think about my own journey about affordability. My mother-in-law was kind enough, by right, she was able to convert her home on Centennial Ave right over here into a two-family. And that allowed me the privilege to get a new home down on Causeway behind Lobsterland, which is another two-family. That's the way that I'm trying to give back to my community. Somebody took care of me. It's my turn to take care of the next generation. So we have to make sure we're investing in leaders that actually care about passing that baton in a way that they're doing it by their actions and not with just lip service alone. So I want to fight for our students in our schools, and that's what a vote for Chris Carranza will mean.
Thank you. Tony?
Yeah, certainly no softball pitch on this one. This is it's not just affordable housing, as Jason was saying, it's also workforce housing. And that's one of the tougher nuts to crack, because it's at the vagaries of the developers to be able to have them build houses that are comparable in size, to be able to build economically so that people can actually afford to buy them. Unfortunately, the way the market works is that the bigger you build, the more profit you can make. And we've sort of gone as a nation, we've gone away from protecting ourselves or protecting our communities. But we, hopefully during the comprehensive plan, the citizens of Gloucester will do some soul searching and decide what kind of a community we want to be. Do we want to be just a bedroom community, or do we want to be a vibrant working community? Now, we can't rely on, the Atlantic Ocean being our economic driver as we had for 400 years. We need to diversify, and we need to protect our resources in the harbor, to protect the fishing industry, but we also need to figure out what is our next economic engine that we need to bring in here so that we can have the jobs that are required, that will pay, so that people can afford to live here.
Great. Thank you. All right, we're going to start with Jamie on this next question. And it doesn't shock anybody to know that we live in an increasingly divisive and polarizing time, often focusing on our differences and barriers instead of working to get initiatives through. How will you work together with your fellow city councilors to get stuff done? Please include specific examples, and if you wish, you may comment on the role of a councilor.
Thank you. Being a city councilor is the voice of the people. I got involved as a or made the decision to become a city councilor after working during the John Bell administration with Citizens for Public Safety, time when the mayor made the decision to close 2 or 3 of the fire stations in Gloucester. I learned that so many people, unfortunately, God gifted me with strong will. Some people can't take a stand. So many people during that era were crying for public safety. They wanted to move out of the city, take their children someplace where they could go to sleep at night, realizing that if something happened, that emergency services would show up. I took that from a public service, helping people as a citizen, to helping people as an elected official. I continue to stand up for the people. I will continue to stand up for the people. I'm not one, I'm very strong-willed. I'm quiet. My nature is very quiet, but I will stand up for the people of Gloucester, the citizens, the ones who need representation. That is who I am, and I will continue to do that if elected again. Thank you.
Thank you.
We like to think that we're a little bit insulated from the national politics and the rancor that happens at that level, but it has introduced itself into the community, and it's unfortunate. Divisiveness and arguing and fighting wastes really valuable time, and we have a big enough job as counselors to do without that. And I think one of the biggest issues I think I've seen in the last couple of years is the perpetuation of bad information, of false information, of ignoring facts and outright truth in the discussion. And as a consequence, you spend a lot of time repairing the damage that causes. There are counselors that work very well together and some that don't, frankly. And it's unfortunate because at the end of the day, our job is to do the people's business. And if we're not paying attention to the facts, listening to people and their concerns, and really getting to the nut of what is the problem, what are we trying to solve here? If we can find out what the problem is, what we're trying to solve, and what are the facts, then we can actually work on a solution. And I think that it's really important to look at who you elect, what they're willing to do in terms of finding out the information that we need to do to get the job done. Nobody wants to spend any more on an issue or a problem than absolutely necessary. Let's get the work done. Let's do it collaboratively. Let's do it with respect for the offices that we hold and the people that we work with. And that will actually get the solutions we need.
Echo Councilor Grow. It's about respect and gratitude and making sure that we've all talked about public service. I'm very, very honored that my grandfather served in the Korean War as a Marine. There's a certain pride that I have that's instilled with me through service. And I was the first ever Director of Communications and Constituent Services for the city. I think most people in this audience and at home know that. I hope they do. And I believe that I have to lend my gift of gab on behalf of you. I've talked to about 2,600 people, and Councilor Worthy might be catching up to me. But I've heard from you, and I've gone out and talked to you. I have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I want to use them in that order. And making sure you have a voice for you is important, certainly. But as you just heard from Councilor Grow, making sure that you have a team of people that are willing to work together, not necessarily for a blank check on anybody. We're certainly a checks and balance body. But again, just look at some of the headlines that some of our councilors have been involved with. And that's a big reason why I'm running. I'm committed to good government. I'm committed to public service, not self-service. So when we're looking at who's putting their name forward, it's not about necessarily agendas. It's about how can we have professional-minded adults that want to get good government done on behalf of all of us, not just some of us. And that's what I'm committed to.
Thank you. Tony?
Yeah, we need, most of us agree, or should, not should, but most of us agree on what the major issues are, and we need to try to solve problems. And you can't do that if you're sniping at each other. It just is not, it's not conducive to any good governance. You also need not only respect for each other, but you also have to have respect for the process, and that there are certain rules that go along with that process that we've all signed up for. And that's very important in order to have a discussion, follow along, and to have orderly meetings, which is what we're elected to do. We're elected to govern for the citizens who elected us. And we're there to do, their will, absolutely, and we need to listen to them. But we also need to do what's best for the entire city. And that's really the most important thing, is to take into consideration not just the loudest voices, but all the voices that need to be heard, because that's what's needed most for the city. And that's not necessarily what I think, but it's what the people think. And I think we need much more discussion. And I would hope that there was more meetings of the neighborhoods that get together and have their own meetings together, and then come to their ward councilors and come to the councilors at large, invite them to come to these meetings so that we can hear what's going on in their neighborhood, so that we can look at that in the overall picture of what's best for the city.
Thank you. And finally, Jeff.
Thank you. I think part of this comes down to a mindset. I just want to make sure it's very clear to all my colleagues and other candidates on this debate stage that I appreciate each and every one of you for running, for trying your best. No one here is evil. No one here is trying to hurt the city. No one here is trying to hurt one another. I think it's been very clear in the way I do my business is I look for the best in people. And I think we should be very grateful that we have a stage full of people, including Councilor Gilman, who's not on this stage, who really want to make Gloucester better. So I just want to make sure that that is made clear regularly. And I think that I've demonstrated the ability to work with other councilors. So back in 2016, when I wasn't on the council, I started a new council orientation program. I don't forget the charter. I still remember ordinances and zoning codes, and I know Robert's Rules of Order. And so we met each term. We had a council orientation that I led to help get them up to speed on the things that need to be done in order to conduct yourself as a professional. And then we started this, and I think it was Councilor O'Hara who put the order in, the beach traffic and parking committee that I served on. And we met with the ward councilor in Ward 1, Scott Memhard, and the ward councilor in Ward 5, Sean Nolan, both with Good Harbor Beach and Winter Chic Beach in their neighborhoods. And we put together the very successful beach reservation system program in 2017. So it took a little while to get it off the ground. I'm pleased to say that I worked well with others. This past year we had, I'm sorry, I can't see the front row, so it says stop.
It says
Can
stop.
Can I borrow time from the future, just finish that point?
You can finish briefly.
Okay, so we had gates that were falling on cars and on people at the train crossings, and it was an order I put forward, and I'm not bragging, I'm pleased to say I know the charter, I know how to do this, we put a resolution forward, and it got the MBTA Keolis here in Gloucester working to fix that, and we got a unanimous vote from my colleagues in the council, and yeah, there were some people who didn't like that it even came up, but we worked on it together, we got it done, and the gates have been working very successfully since then. So there's just a few examples of how we look for the best in people and find solutions.
Thank you. Okay, Jason, this one will start with you. With the lack of availability of affordable housing, please share your vision, including specific strategies to create affordable housing in Gloucester, and include in your answer your thoughts about the MBTA zoning mandate.
In 75 seconds.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's right.
Very quickly. IMBT TOD, let's start with that very quickly. That is a mandate from the city, from the state, that we create a zone that zones for capacity, not for production. And I know that people will say, well, if you build it, they will come. It's a lot more complicated than that, but it's something that we have to do. I think I, on the council, am prepared to tackle that challenge along with the planning board and the mayor's office, and I know other councilors are. I don't think it's going to radically change the housing stock in the central district. I was very proud of the fact that we've worked very hard to tighten the loopholes on the inclusionary housing ordinance, which requires developers to include affordable units, deed restricted, in their projects on site, as opposed to shuffling them off either through a payment or through putting them in another location. So I'm very proud of that fact. I'm very much looking forward to partnering with Harbor Light and Housing for Humanity and other organizations like this to create projects like the Action apartment complex down on Main Street. We have the opportunity, and Greg Berga has talked about this, I've talked about this, about using plots of city land and building fully affordable unit clusters and developments in appropriate places where they fit. And I think that we have a lot that we can do as a city. Now, a lot of it also we can't do. We can't require developers to build affordable housing. We just can't, other than the inclusionary parts. If Jeff's got another extra minute and a half, I'm going to take a couple seconds.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. But basically, there are things that we can do and that we should be doing more aggressively. And there are things that we can encourage, and there are things that we can use the stick occasionally and get developers to include houses and units in their development, so that we keep a socioeconomic balance in the city, and we don't just create little islands of extreme wealth and less wealth.
Thank you. Griff.
Thank you. So the transit orient development is what we're talking about with the TOD, the MBTA. So I know sometimes this stuff sounds confusing when we talk about chapters and 3As and stuff like that. And I think that's the obligation, frankly, of the city council, is to help explain what exactly is at stake, what exactly is that we can do to work together on this, and what is an option versus what is a law. So I want to be clear as possible. This is a law. This is something from the governor's office that we really don't necessarily have a lot of wiggle room in terms of compliance. So instead, you have to work with it in understanding the fact that we could potentially lose other grants, which are going to be critical for our success going forward, because from the people that I'm talking to, they're worried about their bottom line. They're worried about affording to stay here. They're worried about our infrastructure, our roads. And so one of the ways to which you can add, as we call it in the business, the sweeteners when you're talking to developers, if you're on the mayor's side, is having them have incentives such that they're going to help repair some of the roads, repair some of the sewer systems, put it on the developers. As Councilor Groh just said, we can work with the right partners out there. North Shore CDC is also included in that list across the North Shore. So we have to work with the right developers that want to respect our heritage and our culture, and making sure that it fits in with the characteristics. But we have to be clear about what we can do and what we can't do. And when it comes to some of these state guidelines, it is pretty clear what we can't do. So I would rather focus on the ways that we can get better savings back from working with the developers, as opposed to trying to find ways that we can get into more lawsuits and mischief. Not my style, folks.
Okay, Tony.
Yeah, since everybody else is starting off with the transit orient development zone that's going to be around our train tracks, it is a law that is being, it's top down. I'm pretty used to that, being on the school committee for 13 years. You want to talk about top down laws, just go over to that side of the street. But it definitely has some issues, because it just exposes it all to market rate housing. It doesn't really address, other than they finally did put in inclusionary zoning when they rethought it before they put out the final guidelines. I don't know why that wasn't in it originally. And then they also put in the combo developments, where you can have a business down on the first floor and then have housing above it. They made that being eligible also. Why that was overlooked in the beginning, I can't, these are smart people, why they missed these glaring omissions, I'm not sure. But We need to work on guardrails if this is going to be what we are mandated to do. And I think that the comprehensive plan will allow us the opportunity to find out what the citizens of Gloucester, what they think those guardrails should be. I think that needs to be a very, very big part of the discussion on how we can protect ourselves from the, it is not a build plan. It is a, just a certain amount of units that you have to have, not build. Just one more thing. We also need to beef up the Affordable Housing Trust so the city can purchase and permit properties and then put them out to bid that can then go into deeded affordable housing that people can purchase and have their own home and have an investment in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is a subject that we could all probably spend an hour each on and not be done and have answers, but I want to do my best I can in this short time. I think first of all, it does come back to having some sort of perspective and empathy. I mentioned my grandfather earlier who rose through the ranks, became chief of police, but he grew up on New Way Lane and he had dirt floors. He said burlap bags for windows. And he'd come home from school and he would not ask what's for dinner, but is there dinner? And I can't imagine, but I think everyone on the stage here has worked hard and will continue to work hard from an empathetic perspective to do the best we can to help people. So when I was in high school and National Honor Society, Rosemary Banks was our advisor, my biology teacher, and she took us to took me, because I was the only one that volunteered, to volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. We built a house there. And then I continued to volunteer just because I wanted to, and we built 2 in Lynn, and then 1 in Gloucester. It was raising a roof, went up a floor. So I think that, working with Habitat for Humanity gave me a good perspective. Our zoning has been designed to protect the environment and protect people's rights, which I respect and honor. I think we need to be very thoughtful about how we can find ways to build more smaller units on larger lots. Right? If you have 80,000 square feet, you buy that property and you end up building a big house to justify the expense, and then that big house has to sell for a lot of money. But is there a way we can look at smaller homes that don't take up as much space? I didn't get to the transit-oriented development, but I'm stopped. Maybe I can try to work that into another question.
Okay.
Thank
Jamie.
you. I think this is a question that everyone's concerned with, development in the city. Just a year ago, we had a water crisis. We had a fire on Poles Hill, and you combine that with a shortage. Mother Nature's been very dry. It's no secret. It's happening on the West Coast, happening in other parts of the world. The average person consumes 100 gallons or utilizes 100 gallons of water a day. Now, you look at a development, the Mass MBTA DOD putting out 2,270 dwelling units. You say the average home may have four people, 2 parents, 2 children, 100 gallons. That equates out to 340 million gallons of water annually. That also, people can just think of what 340 million gallons of water is. Everyone's seen a tanker truck of gasoline at one of the gas stations in Gloucester. They carry 10,000 gallons. So just envision, where are we going to produce 340 million gallons of water with a water shortage a year ago? Could that happen again? I think the realization is it could. So we have to be concerned with the basic necessities of life before we consider continuing to build out the city with large volumes of dwelling units. Thank you.
Well, why don't you include it in your closing? You've got a lot to cover and not much time. And this one's going to start with Chris. So, the question is as follows. Gloucester's economy is reliant on traditional fishing and maritime economy, arts and culture, as well as a growing bio-life sciences economy. How can the city and you as city councilor support the balance of traditional industries in our city, as well as welcome and develop new businesses, and be as specific as you can.
The only thing constant in life is change, and either you can work with it or you can work against it. We have a responsibility, if I'm elected as one of your 4 at-large councilors, to make sure that we're listening to all voices about ways we can get there. You just talked a little bit about our fishing industry. My husband's family were strongly affected by that. And I think about those that were in a vulnerable place that didn't quite understand how to get into workforce training away from the fishing community. We have an obligation as your government leaders to do all that we can to make sure that everyone succeeds in this city. Rising tides lifts all ships. So it's not one industry versus another industry. It's about a mixed portfolio. So to that end, when I think about ways that we can empower our success, I'll go back to the fishermen for a moment. It's not that we're not fishing here, it's that what we do to fish has changed, and how we can collect almost like a farm to table model. You can see different vendors that are popping up now that are reimagining how we take advantage of the blue economy. I think about GMGI, which is taking people that otherwise were working at Dunkin' Donuts that are now working in labs all across New England with high-paying jobs. So we can embrace the very best features that we have as a city, but make sure we're making progress on it too. It's not an either-or statement. It's about all of us working together to activate our collective success. And if you think that for a second we can't do that, you shouldn't be talking to that person. Believe in people who believe in you.
All right, we will round the corner to Tony.
Okay, so the traditional fishing industry, which is near and dear to my heart, is unfortunately is changed forever. We are never going to go back to landing millions of pounds of fish a week like we did when I was a little bit younger. It's we see what's happened on the waterfront. Those facilities are no longer there. We're not going to be able to recover a lot of those jobs. The workforces are gone. So we do need to diversify. But while diversifying, we also need to protect the fishing, because it still is a pretty significant part of our economy. So we need to make certain that the dockage, and that we also maintain certain services in this city that are required. But unfortunately, most of our harbor is owned by private property, by private owners, which is not under the city's control. The harbor plan, one of the things that the consultant said is, if you want to control it, you need to own it or go into partnership with it. Now, I don't think the city is in any position to be purchasing waterfront property. So that's sort of it's a reality that just can never exist. We need to figure out how to attract some businesses here where we're geographically perfectly set for the ocean, but we're not so well set for the mainstream of life that is required. And so we need to figure out how to get there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think the first thing, again, goes back to mindset. Business owners are people, and they're mostly Gloucester residents. And so I think we also have to have an empathy to how hard it is to run a business, and how hard it is to run a business in Gloucester, where your employees potentially, if you draw a circle around Gloucester, 2/3 of it is water. So it's a little harder to attract employees. It's hard to attract customers as well. I had the opportunity when I worked at the Chamber of Commerce to serve in the North of Boston Convention and Visitors Bureau for actually 4 years in Gloucester and 2 years in Salem. I served on the Downtown Development Commission and the Tourism Commission. I also served in Salem on the Enterprise Center's Board of Directors, and we looked at how do we incent small businesses to start locally. And I like to bring those skills back to Gloucester. Back to the City Council, I'm sorry. And when I worked at the Chamber of Commerce, we had a number of business owners who were artists, and we didn't have programs that really helped them. So if you look at the Articles of Incorporation of C-Arts, the Society for the Encouragement of the Arts, there are 2 names on it, Joanne Castano and Jeff Worthley, because I wanted to start something that really did something to help our artists, which make up a broad base of our employers and our residents in Gloucester. I think sometimes government needs to get out of the way. That's one piece. Some things that government has to do better is be fair. Everybody that comes for a permit needs to be treated equally. City staff needs to treat everybody equally. I think that's an important thing to set the right tone for a business environment. And we really need to work on economic development initiatives to draw businesses here that are going to sustain our residents going forward.
Thank you. Jamie?
As far as businesses in the city and bringing businesses, my concern is maintaining and keeping the businesses we have to start. We have to work with the state legislature, our state officials to make sure our road system is adequate. Anyone who, and a lot of us do, travel out of town in the morning have to travel back. You hit wall-to-wall traffic from Route 62 heading south, going to Woburn, heading into Boston. The clover leaves of 128 and 93 are a nightmare. That those same roadways are holding up truck traffic. There's truck traffic that's going to Gorton's, going to other businesses in Gloucester. That all costs businesses money. Locally, just today, talking to one of the business owners about the new school and just dealing with the additional traffic, having proper stop signs, having everything in place that keeps businesses flowing. We have to be attentive to our existing businesses to maintain them, keeping the cost of Gloucester services at a reasonable level where they can afford to continue to conduct business in Gloucester. I just think that we need to focus on maintaining our existing structure and then expand from there with our state legislature. Thank you.
So a lot of the things that we love about Gloucester that make Gloucester special are the same things that also discourage economic development. We're far away from Boston. We are at the end of the line in terms of the highway. We have a city that's very spread out over a lot of land area. So we have to work a little harder to try to encourage companies and businesses to settle here because they've got to encourage their workforce, and we need workforce obviously for the jobs. We do that by encouraging housing that's affordable. We have to address the affordable housing issue because if you can't have your employees living here or at least living nearby, how are you going to attract them? It's much easier to have a job or a business in Woburn where you have a great big circle of opportunity for people to live and to come from. So how do we get people to be here? Well, we do that by making the housing affordable. We have got to work on our infrastructure, and really we've been doing good work on that, but it's got to get even more. We have to have 21st century infrastructure, and we have to make sure that we continue to invest in our education because people want to move to places where the schools are good, where their kids are going to get a good education, and where they're going to feel comfortable keeping their kids in the district. And that equation, that housing and infrastructure and education are what equals economic development, and that's what we need to focus on.
Okay, it is 11 of 8, so we are going to now move to the closing statements. And I will give you guys a few moments to collect your thoughts. And as you are collecting your thoughts, I will do Val Gilman's closing statement. So why have I, Val Gilman, decided to run for at-large councilor? I feel I am well positioned and prepared to legislate new ordinances by seeking best practices and working closely with our state and local officials. Our elected officials have some huge challenges in this term. Common concerns are seeking reasonable, affordable housing and workforce housing initiatives so that seniors, veterans, and young families can afford to live here. Engaging our taxpayers in the 2023 comprehensive plan to hear the voices of our residents seek solutions for aging infrastructure, private and public road maintenance, staying true to climate and environmental needs, protecting open space, seeking downtown parking solutions, and navigating zoning and ordinance solutions on ways we can make downtown businesses even more vibrant. I will hit the ground running on January 1st, 2024 as one of your 4 at-large councilors. I ask for your vote. Thank you very much, and thank you to Bob Visnick for running such a great debate. I did a little editorializing right there. Okay. Starting from Chris.
Okay.
Go.
Well, again, my name is Chris Carranza. I'm asking for one of your 4 votes. You've heard me talk about the schools, streets, and seniors. And it's because I've been out there door knocking, talking to all of you. I've done this for a long while now. I've served the pleasure of the previous mayor as Director of Communications and Constituent Services. I was the Assistant CAO, then I was the Interim CAO. I'm proud of the fact that I was on the Licensing Board, the Special Events Committee, and I wanted to make sure that I was giving back anything that I could back to our great city. I believe that our great days are ahead of us, and I think you should invest in leaders that think about the future in that way. It's not all doom and gloom. We have a lot of important stuff at hand, sure, yes. And there are very serious things, affordable housing, infrastructure, but we need to have adults in the room that are willing to have tough conversations in a way that celebrates the best of us. We have to stop the divisiveness. We have to stop hating each other. We have to build up our community again. And so when you look at the names on the ballot, if you're looking for some change, there's a new name on that ballot. His name is Chris Carranza. So I've been invested in good government across the city of Salem, the city of Haverhill, of course, the city of Gloucester. I've worked at the state, have a very good relationship with our state delegation, but it's not about if I like this mayor or another mayoral candidate. It's about how we all respect and work together. I'm definitely interested in good government, and you should be interested in leaders that are interested in good government too. So again, November 7th, Chris Carranza, I want to be one of your 4 votes. Thank you all, and thank you, Gloucester. Appreciate you all.
Yeah, good government. I mean, as I said earlier, we don't need to be wasting a lot of time on the bickering and the foolishness that we can find ourselves drowning into. As I said earlier, we moved here 23 years ago with the intention of establishing our home base. So I grew up all over the country, moved every year as a kid. I never had any solidity in my life until I hit college. And I wanted something better for my kids. I wanted them to have a place that they could call home. So when I say that I look at every issue through the lens of what is this going to affect, how is it going to affect their future? How is it going to affect Gloucester 20 years from now? I don't want my legacy to be that we missed opportunities that we had the chance and the ability to fix and to make better for the community. I worked very hard to find out the information and facts that are necessary to make good decisions. I often ask questions, tough questions, from people that think that I'm going to vote for their way automatically, but it's important to challenge assumptions and to make sure that you're really getting to the root of what is at the heart of the issue. And sometimes that makes things uncomfortable for people. But at the end of the day, our goal should always be to be doing the absolute best, not just for Gloucester today, but really for the world that our kids are going to inherit, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's the infrastructure, whether it's paying attention to climate change, all these things. I mean, every one of us on this, well, maybe Jeff and Chris, they'll be a little longer than we are, but most of us are we got a good 20 years or so left here. And what we do in the next couple of years is going to have a profound impact on the next 20 years. And I don't intend to waste my time bickering over little things when we have such big problems to fix.
Thank you. I'm running again for another term to be, as I've mentioned earlier, voice of the people. So many, again, not to reiterate, so many people need someone to stand up for them at City Hall, in city government. Our city has been discovered. We clearly know that, and people need somebody at City Hall to stand up and recognize them, trying to get those people out and get them out of their shell to also participate in city government. As I said at Lanesville Community Center, I'll say it again tonight. If more people got involved in our city government, participated in city council meetings, I appreciate everyone who is here tonight and those of you who are watching from home, but I ask you to show up to City Hall. Our city would operate significantly different, whether it's at City Hall or in the school committee. This is your city. It's not my city. It's none of the other candidates or my fellow councilors. It's the city of Gloucester. And you need to fight for everything. There are people here live on private roads, so many of us do, water line issues. Just fixing a mere pothole has become a huge issue in the city council. We're fighting and I say that in a positive way. Politics is a game, and we all know that. But it's a very costly game. We're dealing with real people's money. It's hard-earned money. We as a city council have to watch every penny that's spent in our city. Making a dollar is so difficult today. We have to watch where dollars go, and that's a difficult task. So I ask you if you'd like to have a representation, to consider me for one of your votes on November 7th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you to Gloucester High School. Thank you to my colleagues on the stage today. I think everyone here is this. We have good candidates, and it's hard to find 4 only that could represent you well. So I'm very blessed to be here and grateful. I think, like Chris, there's a lot more positive in Gloucester than there is negative. And if we focus on the positives, we're going to draw more of that. I believe in the power of manifestation. I think we bring more positive things by talking about and thinking about the positive things. There are negatives, and we need to work on those. But we do it in a way that's collaborative. And I think I've demonstrated for the last 2 years, in my 4 years of service, 20 years ago, that I'm very accessible, that I'm a good collaborator, I'm a good listener, and that I believe in the common good. And we all need to work together towards that common good. I think you may have seen a few campaign signs out around the city. I want to thank my 2 children, Jude and Lila. I took a little risk having them be my co-campaign managers, but they've done an excellent job in helping me stay focused on going door to door and listening to people and being very much a participant in the Gloucester community. My name is Jeff Worthley. I'm first on the ballot. I'm trying to work on a little saying here: vote for Worthley and then vote for 3. I don't know if that works, but you have 4 votes to give. I'd be happy to earn one of yours. I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony.
Yep, Tony Gross, and I've lived here all of my life, and I was raised in a family that taught you, as I mentioned earlier, that taught you that you had to give back in order to get, and that's instilled in me in everything I do. I think that we talk about negatives. I don't see us having negatives. I see us having some big issues that we need to tackle. But this is a great city. Of all of us that are sitting up here, I'm the only councilor that's reorganized a city department, and we did it quite successfully with the Harbor Master Department. If anybody's done any work with them, either prior, post, and pre and post that reorganization, it's been quite a significant change. Also worked for years and got the river dredged. I'm results oriented. I don't like to sing my praises, but this is the time that we have to. I don't think that we should be. Politics is not a game. This is serious business. We should be serious about it for the people. We got building projects going on now, and always are going to have building projects coming up. I'm a licensed contractor. It's always a good thing to have a licensed contractor on the city council, because we are overseeing the budget. I also have my wastewater operator's license, and we're going to invest an awful lot of money into that wastewater treatment plant across the river. And you need to have people there who understand what it takes to successfully do that, and to make sure that we are not go down any rabbit holes, because that is a big rabbit hole that's over there right now that happened, unfortunately, long before a lot of people were around, because it happened in the early 70s. So I work for everyone, and I think that if this, for the city to work, I agree with what was said. We all need to get involved. You don't have to be sitting up here with us. There's lots of boards and commissions that require people that very important work gets done. But democracy is not a spectator sport. And I I'd appreciate your vote. If you vote for me, it's a vote for Gloucester. Thank you.
And thank you to all the candidates. The citizens will have some tough choices to make. You all seem to be fine candidates, great people, and it was a pleasure to talk to you over the last hour. Thank you very much.